Hey, welcome to the video. People watching the video. I'm Tom. We're on the video. I should come up with a standard way to start these videos now that so many of you are watching them. I feel like
the more those numbers come, the bigger.
Yeah. Tamar Sandell is with us today. She's going to talk about tech history.
Yep, that's me.
Hi, Tamar.
Hi.
Start pushing all these other buttons. All right. Yes, that's right. Strike It Rich in our chat room says, of course you guys are talking about apricot computers.
Jeez.
We were discussing the replacement of fruit orchards with fruit companies in Silicon Valley.
Oh, that's right.
And yeah, I find this topic we're going to talk about fascinating. The sort of like, I remember when the iPod, well, I want to save some of it for the show, but I remember when the iPod came out and in my head comparing it to the Walkman.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember also when the Walkman came out, just how badly I wanted one. And looking back, it really didn't do anything.
It was kind of, the Walkman was probably more the same to what happened before it, just smaller.
Yeah.
Whereas like the iPod and like later the iPhone were sort of more like bigger leaps.
Yeah.
But they're all kind of like branches on the same tree.
Yeah.
Like they're all kind of in a line.
That darn transistor just ruined everything for buggy whip makers.
Well, it just created this world where you could have this tiny thing with you. It seemed tiny anyway at the time.
Yeah.
And you could take it wherever you wanted, and that seemed huge.
Yeah.
Well, I remember that, and I really should save this for the show, but I just remember that first cassette recorder that my dad got and was like, look, you don't have to. Well, it was a competition with with my Uncle Harry, his brother, who was all into reel-to-reels.
Yep.
And he was like, don't need to mess with all those reel-to-reels. Check this out.
Yeah. Well, he was right, it turns out.
Yeah, he really was.
Well, I think I spent the first 5 years having a Walkman recording the records and reel-to-reels that we had to tapes to listen to in the Walkman.
Yeah. Oh, that's so funny. I remember not being able to get a Walkman. I had to get a Kobe.
Oh man.
Ouch.
It's like, and you know, this is a theme because I had to wear the JCPenney Fox shirts, not the brand name Penguin.
Pay less buying whatever looked like a Nike shoe.
Yeah. I don't remember shoe-wise. I definitely didn't have Nikes though. It was.
I laugh. This was totally me growing up too.
Yeah. I think I was Converse mostly, actually. So it was at least a brand name.
Okay. Actually, back then Converse were cheap and.
Well, because sports was important, so you needed good shoes for that.
Yeah.
Versus I grew up in San Jose where my dad in tech was like, we need the Walkman.
Yeah, right?
You can't have Converse. Forget that. Why do you
That's
need
not
good
important.
shoes?
Shoes.
You do need high-tech audio equipment.
That's awesome. All right. Let's get this show on the road before we do the show already without doing the show. Here we go. This is the Daily Tech News for Wednesday, June 29th, 2016. I'm Tom Merritt. Joining me today, Mr. Scott Johnson, as he does most Wednesdays. How are you, Scott?
I'm fine. I'm better because it's Wednesday. I love these times that we have together, Tom.
I am very excited. We've got some great top stories to talk about. And also joining us to discuss the roots of our mobile technology, amateur tech historian Tamar Sandell is with us. Thank you, Tamar.
Hi. Great to be here.
We already started getting into the topic before the show, talking about Walkmen and cassettes and iPods and all of that. So we'll get to that in a bit. Let's start off with a look at the top stories. Facebook published a document explaining changes to how things show up in its news feed. The post by VP Product Management Newsfeed Adam Mosseri emphasizes that user interest and friends and family are priorities over publisher and other advertiser needs. After friends and family, Facebook tries to prioritize items that inform and entertain based on behavior such as likes and clicks, etc. Facebook is also encouraging people to use unfollow, hide, see first, other options like that to get the news feed to work the best for you. Facebook does expect the changes may cause reach and referral traffic to decline for some pages. So, Scott, they're essentially saying, we know this will hurt the people who monetize all of their content and make us all the money, but users first, because if we don't have the users, we don't have anything to sell to publishers.
No, it's pretty good PR. I think this is probably why Facebook has continued to grow and does as well as it does, despite what some people may think about the service. They've done a really good job of algorithmically curating everything that you see these days. And I think it's probably just fine. I heard a story yesterday from a fan, so take this for whatever level of journalistic integrity this has, but told me that they had a friend whose son wanted a Facebook page. Parents said no, so he created a page under a different name, faked his age, all the stuff you do when you're a silly preteen or teenager. Created this page. He's under 13, and didn't put any personal information about where he lives or any of the stuff that could lead back to him or have his parents find out he have it. 2 days later, he shows up in the kind of recommended people for you to follow list on the parents page
with a picture.
Oh, who's this person that says we should get with? So it was clear that a lot of these other factors are playing a role in how we're finding each other, retaining each other, and seeing what each other are saying on our feed. So to me, this isn't shocking at all. I kind of like the idea that it's users first, if that's what they really mean. If I sound skeptical, it's because I know this stuff's more complicated than simply that. But yeah, at least it's not them just saying, yeah, we're giving all your data to everybody and we don't care about nothing. So sorry, we're Facebook. Live with it.
Yeah, I think the thing that really surprised me was in the engineering post, them lining out in a public post, yes, this may cause reach and referral traffic to decline. They didn't say it could have impacts on. They didn't try to fudge it. They're like, no, this is going to reduce your reach and referral. We're really sorry, but we think it's that important. And I don't think it's altruistic, and certainly they're going to play it for the PR bump that they can get, but it is Facebook acknowledging something that I think companies have struggled with for a long time, which is you have to go for the long-term good of your product to make sure that you keep those short-term benefits around. If you go for the short-term benefit of pumping up your numbers, you'll look great this quarter, but you may end up as the next MySpace or Friendster. And I think that's what they're trying to avoid.
Yeah, in a way, they're just doing what, say, Google did not too long ago when they started doing it. Now they do it continually, but they're always changing the way their search works so that people can't gain the system and end up having way more people find their site than should be. And doing crazy SEO things that are a little bit skeezy on the back end. They're always trying to make that a better experience for users, even though potentially this means lost revenue. So it's the right thing for them to do.
Tamar, do you believe Facebook that they're users first?
I think to the extent that any major media company is users first, yeah. But I do think that there's a large focus on quality user experience rather than just blasting. So that's sort of the shift is more we want the best eyeballs on the best products, or we want to make sure people are paying for the best access. So it sort of puts them above other streams.
So they're in meetings with their major revenue generators saying, look, I know we're saying this up front, but this is how it's going to still work for you.
Yeah, they're trying to spin it as an advantage, which is sort of believable because they want to make sure that they're getting the right info to the right people.
Google's Project Zero researcher, Tavis Ormandy, also happens to have the coolest name at Google in my opinion, says they found vulnerabilities in 25 Symantec products, including Norton Antivirus, that old chestnut. Some of these vulnerabilities could be triggered by emailing a file, and that doesn't mean any user interaction at all, is what they're saying. Symantec has published fixes for all of these vulnerabilities. Ormandy chided Symantec for allowing its unpacker to have kernel access and using 7-year-old code in need of updates. That's all part of its decomposer library. So kind of going after Norton or Symantec a little bit, saying, guys, update your stuff.
Tavis Ormandy, in the opposition to our previous discussion about doing what's good for PR. I mean, I guess this is good for PR for Google, but I think Tavis Ormandy just goes after things. When it hits the 90 days, he lets people know it. In this case, it wasn't even the 90 days. They waited until Symantec had fixed the vulnerabilities and then let people know it. And when he let them know it, he didn't let them know it politely. He said, look, this is really bad what you did here. Like this should not have been a thing. But I am glad that Google is allowing Project Zero to go out and find these vulnerabilities and get them fixed. That's fantastic.
Yep, totally agree.
Hey, it's official. Windows 10 anniversary update will arrive August 2nd. So if you were wondering about that blog post that blipped out yesterday that we mentioned, they have made it official now, and they didn't change the date. So Windows 10, if you've got it, you will get that update on August 2nd. Amazon announced today that they will begin offering Prime members discounted unlocked smartphones with pre-installed Amazon apps, so like Amazon Video, the Amazon Shopping, Kindle, etc. They'll also have lock screen ads, similar to what they do with their e-readers. So the special offers will show up on 2 devices sold with their branding, sold without their branding. So there's no Amazon branding on these. These are just stock devices from Moto G for $150 and the Blue R1 HD for $50. The only difference between this and other versions of these phones is they have the Amazon pre-installed and the ads on the lock screen. They both appear on the lock screen as well as below lock screen notifications, although those can be swiped away. Amazon did not announce a release date. The release date for the regular versions of these is July 12th, so one assumes that's when they'll come out on Amazon as well. We talked about this a bit this morning, Scott, but it is interesting to say, oh, I can get a decent phone for a really cheap price with ads on it. It's a big step for Amazon to say, yeah, we are not coming out with another Fire phone right now. We are not coming out with a phone that runs our Fire OS. We're coming out with an Android phone with Google services on it, and we're taking the Microsoft tactic of just pre-installing our own stuff.
Yeah, basically, if there was a way to visualize a big giant nail in the proverbial coffin of the Fire phone series and thinking that they might take a second stab at it, this has to be it. I mean, them saying, look, this is an inexpensive way to do it. These are true Android devices. These aren't a forked version of what we do with the Fire phones or Fire tablets. I assume Fire tablets will continue to be there and do okay. They seem to be doing okay. I see a lot of those in the wild.
Yeah. They haven't updated them in a while, but that may be coming soon.
Well, and that may mean nothing, but it may mean that they're pulling away. Maybe this is a business they thought they wanted to get into. They wanted to compete with iPads and with Android Nexus tablets and that sort of thing. And maybe they're just like, you know what, guys, let's stick to where our competencies are. We've done amazing things with Alexa, and we've got great things happening still with Kindle and other
Fire TV. They're selling decent numbers of Fire TV boxes.
Yeah, so why not? I mean, to me, the writing was on the wall. That was an embarrassing product launch. It went real bad for them. It makes sense to me that a company like them, where they need to keep at the pace of business, just start selling great phones, have a less expensive option, put your stuff on it. You kind of have a everybody wins scenario, and you're still competing in a way with these other guys you were trying to compete with. So it kind of seems like it works for everybody. I think that's great.
Tamar, is it worth $50 of savings to you to put up with ads on your lock screen?
Probably. I do it on a Kindle Fire right now. So if I really needed a cheap phone, they're often good for like it's not my iPad Fire, it's not my good phone, it's my bad phone or my cheap phone alternative.
Yeah, your secondary phone. That makes sense, actually.
Yeah, and even then, look, there needs to be, I think, mainstream alternatives that aren't just, I can get this weird Chinese knockoff through Alibaba or something. It'd be nice to be able to go to Amazon and say, here is an Amazon, quote-unquote, Amazon-endorsed preloaded phone that is true Android, that are good phones. These aren't garbage phones, and they're substantially less expensive than a brand new iPhone or the latest Galaxy phone. So I don't see how this is bad for them at all. In fact, this probably should have been their first strategy. And I feel like this is just what they're going to settle into, and this is what we'll see from now on from them.
Yeah, and honestly, I would like them to do this. I liked that the Kindle app was available everywhere. I didn't have to actually buy a Kindle device to get the ability to read Kindles, and I don't read on a Kindle device anymore, but I still buy lots of Kindles because of that. Whereas Amazon Video, I kind of steer clear of, because they're like, well, we're not going to have it on phones. Okay, we'll have it on phones, but not on tablets. Okay, we'll have it on tablets, but you have to use the Amazon. Like that just kept me like, I don't know where I can get it anymore. I'm just not going to bother with it.
Yeah, there's an openness to Kindle as an ecosystem. There's an openness to Echo as an ecosystem. And that openness did not seem to extend to phones and tablets for some reason. This seems like a bit of a reset, so I think that's good.
Yeah.
Uber will now use information gathered from drivers' phones to send a weekly scorecard. So get ready to be judged, everybody. Speeding alerts and reminders to take breaks, that kind of stuff as well. The Uber app for drivers will use the gyro and accelerometer and GPS to collect data. So they're going to use every possible data point. Uber's been experimenting with looking at the data to confirm complaints about aggressive driving. Monthly reports sent to drivers in some markets resulted in 10% reduction in harsh braking. The feature will roll out in 11 cities across India and the United States. I love the idea that they'll literally tap into movement data to see how herky-jerky their trip was. That's amazing to me.
Well, yeah, and just to help them understand that they're, help them become better drivers. I can see some drivers being annoyed, like, come on, man, speeding happens. If I'm not speeding on certain highways, I'm going to be endangering my passengers. Like, I don't need a speeding alert when I'm going along with the rest of traffic on the 405 or whatever, right? So I can see the downside to this, too.
Yeah, it's also this... I know I'm wrong to do this, and you'll be the first person to tell me this, and it's partly why I enjoy our relationship, because you're often having me crawl down from great heights when I have opinions on stuff like this. But I feel like we're still waiting for some terrible, terrible, terrible Uber story. Like, I don't know.
There have been terrible Uber stories.
And there have been, don't get me wrong. Some of that stuff has been real bad.
Yeah.
I'm talking about like a systemic, broad problem that hits all at once or something like that. I feel like I'm just waiting for that shoe to drop. And I probably should stop thinking about it that way.
Well, what else do you need to happen? You need to have like thousands of Uber drivers do something horrible at once. Like,
I don't want any of it, to be honest. I'd like it all to go very smoothly. But there's a little piece of me that's still shocked that we are totally cool with the situation. And to better explain that, just the idea 15 years ago, if you'd have said, hey, what do you think would happen if the world just suddenly gave everybody drive or rides in cars, and we had little devices that would like make sure all the payment stuff worked out? It would sound insane.
How is that different from a taxi driver?
I don't know why. It's just there's a disconnect for me where a taxi driver is like, there's that business, they drive a yellow cab, they pick me up. That's been the relationship for as long as I've been on this planet. And now we have this new one where it's, that guy's got a Celica. I need to drive somewhere. He's in the neighborhood. Let's do this.
Well, and that's why, especially in India, but even in parts of the United States and elsewhere, they are pushing for background checks and to say, look, you can't just let anybody do Uber X. There's Uber and there's Uber X, and I think that's also part of the problem. Uber started as ride sharing. Now it's ride hailing. It really isn't just anymore too much of the anybody who has a Celica becomes an Uber driver.
That's true. It's just such a weird new kind of ecosystem.
I don't know why it's a Celica either.
Yeah, I don't know either. I don't know why I pulled that one out. It's actually more like...
What color is the Celica, Scott?
It's like Nissan Altimas all the time, it seems like.
Tamar, do you take Lyft or Uber or anything like that?
Yeah, I've taken Uber quite a bit, although I find the advantage of their new technology, it reminds me of my 17-year-old stepdaughter who's learning to drive. And like, I think that parents would love to be able to just know how well their own kids are driving. If everywhere they take their phone, they can see, even if they're not driving, even if their friend's driving them around, you see, like, you were with a bad driver today.
There's
so
an
I
app
think there's a new app like in development for parents everywhere, based on like using, speed, geolocation, and all that to figure out like not just where your kids are, but how well they're driving.
Yeah. If that exists, email us feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com because I think that's pretty genius.
I have a 16-year-old who's about to get his license. I would really like that app.
Sony CEO Kaz Hirai told investors it has started a robot organization inside of Sony. They started it back in April to provide emotionally compelling experiences. So think Pepper, SoftBank's Pepper robot. Everybody's trying to get into this game. Hirai also expects the PlayStation VR, which launches in October, to lead a future area of growth and continue the robust games business that Sony is pretty much relying on for their profits right now. Also hoped that dual lens cameras might slow the slide in sensor sales that has been going along with the slide in smartphone sales. Sony also announced Ustream will no longer be an option for streaming gameplay from the PlayStation 4 after August 1st. Ustream broadcast will no longer be viewable in live from PlayStation either. Sony will continue to support Twitch, YouTube, and Dailymotion though. And while Sony wouldn't confirm the number of PlayStation Vue subscribers, Bloomberg says sources tell it Sony has signed up more than 100,000 subscribers for that service since March 2015.
It's not a lot if you consider there are 50 million PlayStation owners. Now, I know that's worldwide, so
right.
we say that, but but here, even in the U.S., that seems like a smaller.
And there's like 100 million cable subscribers.
Yeah,
a little bit less than that now, but yeah, this
it's
is a drop in a bucket.
Left. I suppose in a relatively fresh cord cutting world, this is progress if you're sort of for that. It may be seen. I guess I don't see it as a failure. It feels like maybe it's a bit of a lost leader in a way for them to kind of complete their services. It isn't just a game machine; it's these other things. But the thing that didn't surprise me about any of these announcements was them cutting Ustream off, mainly because I don't know anyone who's using it for gaming anyway. I mean, Ustream may have plenty of other ins and outs, but nobody's using it. It's all Twitch all the time, and if you're not that, you're a refugee in YouTube using YouTube live streaming. And after that, what are you doing? Like, it just seems like a much smaller horse race than Ustream could fit into.
And Ustream seems to have pivoted toward the enterprise as their future, so it may have been just as much their decision as well to say, you know what, it's not worth us supporting this anymore, because that's not where the majority of our users are either.
Yeah. Also, a quick note on VR, PlayStation VR. If this does well enough this holiday season, and there's a lot of big expectations, pre-sales were really strong. There's a lot of reason to think this is going to go well for them. I would like to see Sony at least consider the idea of working on some VR projects that are not tethered to a console, that are more along the lines of Gear VR or something a little more portable, or standalone devices that those not as interested in games but interested in 360 video or VR experiences that aren't necessarily games.
Yeah, but why? They don't own Vio anymore. They don't have a division that does that.
You're right. They don't have any of that stuff. So this would be like a new thing for them, like a new product, standalone. I guess what I'm telling you, Tom, is it doesn't have to be Sony. I want somebody working on standalone VR technology that just gives me a headset, not a bunch of cables, maybe my phone if that's the screen we have to use.
Well, yeah, there's a few of them out there. There's the Microsoft HoloLens. There's open source VR. There's a couple others I can't bring to mind right at this second that are trying to do the standalone.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that. That's the future we're all heading for, folks, not this big cabled-up nightmare we're dealing with now. I was negative, and I didn't mean it to be.
Gosh, get off my lawn, VR!
Nintendo's Shigeru Miyamoto told investors the company did not display the Nintendo NX console at E3 because it is concerned about copycats. This is not the first time they've said this, by the way. The NX is expected to arrive in March of 2017. Miyamoto also said Nintendo has the core technology for VR, but wants to release, quote, something that can be played for long periods, carries value, and is affordable. I happen to agree with him. Engadget notes that in a slide presentation, Nintendo said it is shifting focus from expanding the gaming population to increasing exposure of Nintendo's characters and game titles. Everything about that is standard Nintendo stance. The copycat thing is a thing they've had fears about in the past. None of this is, I mean, it's news, but none of it is shocking at all. This is kind of their modus operandi, and they'll always work this way, in my opinion, unless they have a severe change in corporate culture. But this is kind of how they roll.
Well, and to your point about you wish Sony would come up with some kind of standalone VR, Nintendo is not having any VR, and they're essentially signaling like, we don't think we can make something parents will like yet.
Mm-hmm. That is what they're saying, and they're also saying it's hard to leverage their lucrative, incredibly lucrative IP, the properties that they have, the names that they have under their umbrella, including Miyamoto himself, are enough to propel Nintendo into the future however they decide they want to make their future. And so they're not the kind of company that needs to stop what they're doing and attach to trends. When they've tried to do that in the past, it's hurt them. That isn't to say they don't always succeed with their weird offshoots, like the Wii U is largely considered a bit of a failure. The Wii, however, was an enormous success for them, albeit sort of a short one. I'm very excited to see what they do with this next, but them relying on the strength of their IPs and the incredible value that their own internal development brings them, it just feels fine to me that they're not announcing VR. I don't need them to be on this bandwagon
But
yet.
does that mean that VR isn't ready yet? Before you answer that, this afternoon, HTC confirmed to The Verge that it has established a wholly owned subsidiary called HTC Vive Tech Corporation. So it's within HTC, but it's now sheltered. So if you do a deal with HTC Vive Tech Corporation, say as a game developer, you don't have to worry that HTC will go out of business because of bad phone sales, because it can be spun off already as a wholly owned subsidiary, and they're going to have them develop their VR business. So HTC is doing the opposite of Nintendo and saying, VR business is the only business that's worth anything for us right now.
It's almost as if the phone business isn't working out for HTC in the way that they had hoped.
Oh, no. Nothing that they're doing is working out. When I say it's not worth anything, I'm overstating it, obviously. But yeah, this is the bright spot for them. And a lot of people were saying they could buoy the rest of the company, but instead they've sort of sectioned it off so it won't sink.
Yeah, not only that, because they've kind of tied their wagon to Steam VR, which is built on an open source form of VR, and Steam is not Steam, but Valve is very, very much into making sure that hardware developers and software developers have everything they need to do what they need to do. And rumor is, at Valve, a third of that company is now working on VR and VR projects, and some of that may be interfacing with HTC and other companies working on future headsets. That ecosystem seems really, if not robust, at the very least determined, and that determination is pretty palpable. So I say this is probably a really smart move for HTC, and they've established themselves as a quality hardware maker for VR. People look at that device and say, yeah, way to go. We didn't know you had it in you. And if they can keep that up, I'm very much looking forward to whatever their next iteration is.
But Tamar, are you going to buy any of these, or do you already own one of these yet?
I don't, but I'm also curious how this might tie into what you were talking about before with enterprise and VR. I think it's like people like to talk about the flashy like gaming and all this like, sort of super consumer end, but I feel like that's this other sort of unexplored platform that I feel like until that becomes another area for, business functions every day requiring VR, it's still going to be a little bit more like flash and pan, come, go, PR moves here and there, and then like until it's like basically boring, like until it's a fax machine, it's all kind of like touch and go, touch and go.
Yeah.
That's
until
a really good
Bob's
point.
Complaining that Jane didn't clean the VR headset last time she used it.
Exactly, getting VR dust everywhere. I will share one quick anecdote. I was at a dental office this week at a dental appointment, and I had to have a filling 3D, not printed, but milled. And the way they do these, they do them right on site. It's super cool. And my dentist sits down at this big screen, and after they've taken a bunch of pictures with a wand in my mouth where the tooth's supposed to be, they are presented on screen with a really good 3D model of the tooth. And they get to now kind of tweak it and mold it, make sure it's going to fit exactly right within this like virtual mouth in there. And he's doing it with a trackball and a click pad, which seems super weird that that's not a mouse or some other way. But it immediately hit me. You could easily put on a headset, take a couple of Vive controllers, and do what he's doing in a way that would be far more detailed, zoom in, zoom out, walk around that thing. I mean, may not be practical as it stands right now for position detection in a small dental office. However, it was immediately obvious to me what you said, that the corporate and sort of medical world, there are ways to start using this stuff like right away. It isn't just we're going to be doing virtual surgery across the country or some sci-fi idea. I mean just like practical things they're already doing, but in a much better way. And man, there's got to be so much money in that. That guy, he paid $100,000 or more for that system.
Yeah.
So why not?
He won't pay as much for the next one.
No, do it in VR.
Real quickly, finishing out the top stories, Microsoft is offering what is essentially a free Xbox One with the purchase of a Surface Pro 4. You have to buy both, but then you get a $299 discount for buying both, and that's the price of the Xbox One. You also have to be either a student, a parent of a student, or a faculty member. It starts today and runs until August 14th. Scott, you just thought this was humorous.
It cracks me up because they're saying, hey, here's this device, the Surface Pro, a fantastic computing device. You're going to take this to school, and you're going to learn all kinds of stuff, and you are going to get great grades and graduate top of your class. Way to go. What's your major? Oh, by the way, for free over here, you can have this thing that will distract you from all that other stuff I said, and you'll end up, dropping out.
Except I'm studying game design, Scott, so this is perfect for me.
Too many game designers.
Yeah. Hey, thanks to everybody who submits stories in our subreddit, dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. In there today, amongst all of y'all, is TG Stellar, Captain Kipper, Flying Spatula, Abituela Condolce, Philip Shane, and more. Get in there and vote. dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com, and that is a look at the top stories. All right, today, June 29th, is the 9th anniversary of the launch of the iPhone. And coming up in October, it'll be the 15th anniversary of the launch of the iPod. And so when we think mobile devices, this is what we think about. We think about phones, we think about music devices, but many of the features of the modern smartphone have their roots in much earlier music devices that didn't let you get to pick the songs because they were radio. Before the 1950s, Tamar, you didn't carry audio and video with you. This is relatively new in human history.
Yeah, for, 50 plus years prior to the transistor radio, people actually had to sit down with a really big box or cabinet, like a piece of furniture, and play records, play phonographs, listen to the radio. It was something you did at home, kind of like many people probably remember TV in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. That's what radio was. That's what music was. It was very much like sitting on the couch, sitting at home with a big box that was really big.
So what made that change? What was the thing that brought us to like, hey, you can take this tinny AM radio station around with you?
Yeah, so you have the development of the transistor itself in the 40s, which was originally more designed for military usage. It was really expensive, and they decided to start putting it in radios as a way of sort of showing it off. It was really like almost a PR move. They did it in time for Christmas in 1954. It was really expensive and not really good when it first came out, but the idea caught on, and in about 10 years, it went from being like about in today's dollars, over $300 purchase to something that was more akin to like $30 to $50 purchase. So it suddenly went to be really accessible, and simultaneously, TV took over the big box. Radio now became the thing that you could take with you.
Well, and at the time, a lot of people were thinking TV was going to eventually kill radio. Do you think this is one of the things that saved it?
It definitely did, along with, over time, you also have the development of FM, but that came a little bit later in terms of rising with, different music styles. But at least in the 50s and 60s, having more of the early rock music that played well on the tinny AM, like, say, the Beatles, like high pitch, kind of just need a basic, beat, played really, really well in those little devices that everyone could carry with them, especially young people.
That's interesting. I'd never considered the idea. Now it rings true in my head that the Beatles style of early music, especially the later stuff, you could make different arguments, but the early stuff did very much seem to be perfectly suited for that kind of technology. I had never really considered that before, and later they messed around with like stereo in a way that a lot of other bands weren't as well. I hadn't really thought about it. This is a band that is so influential and so important in the history of rock and roll that they also, either knowingly or not, rode right along with the changes in the technology. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, 1960, 1963, Beatles, all the early sort of British invasion, even kind of like late 50s, like all of that sort of early rock was like perfect to be played on what we would now consider kind of a, sort of lo-fi device. And similarly, over time later, the Beatles switched over to that sort of high fidelity, like really good stereo system. But they definitely rode the wave, all of those sort of late 50s, early 60s bands, their music, which was sort of, key bass line, tinny kind of like light guitar, kind of high-pitched voice, all was like perfect for the transistor radio.
Well, and another thing that I think affects that is solitary listening. I had forgotten until we were preparing for this, and you pointed out that, yeah, people had headphones that they wore over their ears, but transistor radios, maybe they had a little thing that you stuck in one ear, but mostly you just listened to them out in the open. It wasn't until later that headphones became an essential part of mobile technology.
Yeah, there was actually like an anti-headphone movement that happened when they first came out, because with a little square device and an earpiece, it looked a lot like the hearing aids of the day. And people didn't want other people to think, for better or for worse, that they were using a hearing aid. So they sort of ditched the earplugs, and they might hold it up to their ear, or they would put it on a shelf. But the only time people ever used the sort of earphone piece was either for secret listening. So nowadays we think, oh, people take their iPhones to bed. Oh, this is so horrible. People took their transistor radios to bed, kids, teens, and would secretly listen with that sort of headphone. They would also, do all kinds of other things to hide their listening. But generally, it was kind of more public.
Yeah, I wasn't allowed to stay up too late on a Sunday night, but I would go with a very small radio with a single earpiece, one ear, and listen to Dr. Demento on Sunday nights in seventh grade or whatever. And it was because I could. Like, suddenly this portable thing was available to me. It's no different today than me going, all right, I need to watch the Game of Thrones finale, but I've also got kids in here watching Seinfeld on Hulu on a television. I'm going to just watch this on my iPad and over in the corner because I don't know what HBO is going to show me this week.
Yeah.
And in a way, it's just moved to video. Like that same kind of ability is there. We've got a TV that's thinner than a book in our hands and has a 12-hour battery life on it, and it's kind of insane if you think about it that way.
I used to steal my dad's silver transistor radio and earpiece and a flashlight so that I could listen to American Top 40, which wasn't on until 10 p.m. after I was supposed to be asleep, and then I would write down it was the only way for me to get the top 40 back in the day. That's crazy. The other thing that I think is interesting that you pointed out, Tamar, is that before transistor radios, devices were expensive and you fixed them if they broke. You got a new crystal or you took it into a repair shop. And these days you get a lot of people complaining like, why don't people try to fix anything anymore? It's because these devices became so cheap it wasn't worth it anymore.
Yeah, it was partly a factor of cost. It was also design. They actually started designing transistor radios so that you couldn't open them or that you couldn't open them easily. And in the past, people would like open up the cabinet with the radio to fix. And that was just a thing that you or your neighbor or a professional did. But between the sort of ease of replacement, like it was cheap, and the difficulty of opening it up to fix it, it really sort of shifted the consumer electronics model to be more like, oh, now radio devices or now like a lot of these sort of new techs that we're developing, it just became disposable. It was easier to replace than to repair.
Feels like that's true now of phones. You always hear people say, well, wouldn't it be great to have replaceable batteries in our phones? And others say, well, I'd rather have a phone that doesn't rattle or doesn't come apart when I drop it or whatever because I'm just going to replace this thing in a year anyway. Like from a historic perspective, I feel like we are echoing a lot of that stuff again today.
Yeah, a lot of pretty much almost everything that someone has written either to complain about or to like celebrate about the iPhone, the iPod, the tablets has been written for at least 50 to 60 years about probably a radio, if not a Walkman or a boombox. Like it's pretty much been covered, like every major sort of warning, concern, or heralding by the companies, the exact words, the same images that they use has been repeated like about every 10 to 20 years about a new technology for the last 50 or 60 years.
So somebody like you's got a good handle on the history of all this, and you have a more historical perspective on these trends and when they come and go. When you hear a shock piece or some link bait or something about new study suggests Nexus phones are giving us all cancer or whatever,
right?
You probably see them through just slightly different eyes than the rest of us.
I tend to say like wait about 2 years for the like hype, fear, whatever, and then wait about 10 years for them to say it in the exact same words about another thing.
That's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. Well, and you were mentioning before the show, cars have gone through this evolution where there were cars that were trying to be like the locked down transistor radios that made them hard to repair, so you'd have to go to the dealer. And now, because cars have software, the manufacturers have sort of moved on to protecting that.
Yeah, I mean, cars are an example where a lot of people really enjoy like modding out cars, and they kind of don't really care if you like physically change them, but they freak out if you try to touch the software. So nowadays, like they're less inclined to be concerned about opening up a physical hood, as it were. They're really concerned about you like touching anything that involves software. Like that's the new sort of like they don't want you to access that at all.
Yeah, and I know a lot of farmers have run into that with combines and tractors and things like that as well. There was a whole controversy over John Deere saying you can't fix your own tractor anymore, and that did not sit well with a lot of people.
Yeah, it's funny how like fixing things used to be sort of what you or your friends or professionals did, and now it's like either nobody does it and you get a new one, or send it back to the factory. They don't want you to see how they open it up.
You think people freak out about automated cars, or at least the idea of automated cars, for similar reasons? They don't. It's once again another layer of self-control being taken from them.
Yeah, I think people like to think that they would open up their phone to fix it if they had that ability. Like when you were saying they want to be able to open it up, I think that they say that they want to be able to open it up, but most people don't really want to learn to fix every single thing in their home. They really just want the ability to do so.
Yeah.
The same with the cars. They want the ability to control it, or they like the idea, but reality is like they want to drive.
They
want the right to ignore the option.
Yeah, just have the illusion. You have the illusion that you can do something about it. Is enough for a lot of people.
I want the self-drive button to push, but I will never use it.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's finish up with a couple of emails here regarding gray markets. We talked yesterday about particularly game codes being resold before they have actually been used and installed, and the controversies around that. Jay from Frankfurt, Germany says, please don't promote a new digital rights management site for games on my PC. I have Steam Origin Uplay already installed so I can play all my games, and even that mostly only if I am online, so no chance on a train. But there are tools that are easier, like GOG.com's Galaxy, that is optional. DRM is bad, and fraudulent codes should be blocked from selling rather than having new DRM. And then Alan said, an example that is similar to the game codes you talked about yesterday are digital download codes for movies that come with DVD and Blu-ray. There are also promotional codes that are given away with other merchandise and occasionally even sold at discount prices, although that's rare. So while these codes aren't usually sold directly, the similarity is that there is a large gray market for these unused codes. Movies have strong DRM, just like some games, but there can be fraud around the purchase that obtained the code, and that's really the key to it.
Yeah. Also, can I just say I'm totally with Frankfurt, Germany's own Jay.
Yeah.
We have enough layers of this. I think I'm okay with the current ecosystem. Any more of that, and my PC gaming days perhaps would be numbered. It already is a little oppressive.
Well, that is it for this episode of the Daily Tech News Show. Tamar Sandell, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks. It was really fun.
Where can people find more of what you're up to?
You can find me on Twitter at T4Tamar, like the drink tea, which I love. And I write about all sorts of stuff, including suburban mom stuff, tech, and other things. TEAFORTAMAR. And we'll have it in the show notes as well. Go follow her, twitter.com/T4Tamar. Scott Johnson, what do you got going on?
Millions of things, too many to say, so I'll just say this. If you like daily content, like you're listening to DTNS because you like a daily tech news show, it's in the name, for heaven's sakes, and you're thinking, I need some other daily entertainment, might I point your squinties at a little show I host every day with my friend Brian Ibbett, with guests like Tom Merritt and others, called the Morning Stream, and you can find details on that show. It happens every Monday through Thursday, twice on Thursdays, in fact, at frogpants.com/TMS. for short, and follow me on Twitter at Scott Johnson, as always.
Thanks for everyone who supports the show. We survive on your funding. That's how we do the show. dailytechnewsshow.com/support. If you're not already supporting us in one way, we'll tell you all the ways. If you're willing to support us on an ongoing basis, patreon.com/DTNS. And no matter what, let us know what you think of the show. We do a survey a couple times a year to kind of keep tabs on what people are thinking. Take our survey at bit.ly/2016DTNS. That's 2016 DTNS. You can find that link in the show notes as well. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. You can give us a call, 512-59-DAILY. That's 593-2459. Catch the show live Monday through Friday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern at alphageekradio.com or diamondclub.tv. And visit our website, dailytechnewsshow.com. We'll be back tomorrow with Justin Robert Young. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
That was an excellent show. Thank you, Tamar.
Yeah, you're welcome. That was fun.
Oh, good. I'm glad you had a good time.
Really good.
See, you had nothing to be nervous about.
You're right. It was great.
It's the next time you should be nervous.
Me.
Right.
I was
Next time
the
when I
one.
have more questions.
What should we call the show, Roger?
Titles, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right. Sometimes they can't tell. If you just ignore me.
Hey, Tamar, if you go to showbot.tv, you can actually see all the titles that people submitted during the show.
SHOWBOT.TV
And then top of the list is Symantec. Get it?
Yeah.
Symantec.
Fantech, like that.
Facebook likes its users. We're Facebook YOLO. There's also Get Off My Lawn VR. New tech, same as the old tech. Virtual Tooth Fairy. The Cycle of Tech.
Admazon.
Oh, Admazon Android. Adroid phone.
Adroid, that's not bad.
Norton is a virus.
Heard that before.
Yeah, but it's a different Norton.
Norton goes viral.
Get off my lawn, VR.
Parental espionage apps.
I'm looking forward to those.
Don't
Looking
judge
for a
me,
good.
Uber.
The cycle of tech is kind of good.
Yeah, I like that talks about the main discussion. We could talk about tech history all day.
Yeah, that was fun.
I love that stuff. It's almost like you have a book and I drew pictures for it.
It is. In fact, we should have mentioned that during the show, shouldn't
Yeah, I don't know why we didn't think of that.
Zuck fights for the users. From Tron. Dun, 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 dun. I don't know. There's nothing here that jumps out at me other than
me
the
either.
cycle of tech, because it's related to the discussion story. How the Walkman improved your life, or how the Walkman.
How cheap radios. I can only think of things that are really long.
Oh, let me see.
How cheap radios. It's what I wrote for the description. How cheap radios paved the way for the technology you use on the mobile. It's really good. We can go the cycle of tech, I guess, but I feel like there's something better.
And yeah, no, it's like how cheap radios made the iPhone possible.
The circle of tech's life.
Oh yeah, the circle of tech.
There has to be something a little more biting.
Well, I love the idea of coming up with something that is that idea, though, of what has come before is coming again, sort of Battlestar Galactica final episode sort of stuff.
Well, yeah.
Because human beings just repeat, man. We just repeat. That's what we do.
Well, yeah, it's because it's every few generations or so, everyone kind of forgets the lessons and then remakes them.
Big war, and then a big dumb something or other, and then
There's going to be another Hands Across America, I guarantee you, within the next generation.
Real?
Why doesn't everyone just hold hands as a sign of national unity?
never heard of that before.
What is? I'm sure most people. How many people in the chat room even know what Hands Across America is?
I have the 45. How many people know what a 45 is?
We're not talking about a firearm either.
No.
Right. Good point.
Tom's talking about beer.
I am totally doing that. I'm going to go with the circle of tech, unless you guys have anything else.
The tech loop.
The tech carousel.
The tech loop sounds more like a bad podcast name.
Welcome to the Tech Loop,
Here we are at the tech loop.
I'm Scott
where
Merritt.
we report on things from one infinite
Tom
loop
Johnson.
and beyond.
Here we will.
We've heard of a new technology called a web browser. It's called Mosaic. It allows you to display pictures dynamically, imaging on your screen. Think of it as kind of a gopher with pictures.
There you go.
Gopher. Gopher. I used to use
Gopher pre-Netscape world you're talking about?
Yeah. I had to do all that. I use Gopher.
Tamar, do you have any title preferences?
I don't know. I was going to suggest something about like earpieces and something. I don't know. We're all like, we all still have them. They never go away.
From earpiece to earbud.
Yeah. You're from earpiece to Beats by Dre, or can't say that. Beats by Dre. How Beats by Dre, or how hearing aids became.
Let's just call it Beats by Dre. There's your
Beats
title.
by
Just out of nowhere for no
How
reason.
about Dre Beats earpieces?
I like that though. I like that angle.
Or something about being in your hand. Like, that's the other thing. If you look, I didn't talk about this, but if you look at the old ads for transistors, they're all like this, like this. It's like, here's the picture of the thing. Look how small it is
I
in
can
my
hold it in
hand.
my hand.
I can hold it. Like, and then when the iPod came out, it was also like the hand, like in your hand, like for scale /
Everything, technology. Oh, technology needs to fit the hand, or tech will fit the hand, or
The tech at hand.
the tech at hand.
I think that's too high concept.
It
Or
all
low
needs to
concept?
fit your hand. You need to grip it. Kung Fu grip tech.
Or it needs to be secretly listening to Dr. Demento.
Right.
That can be the.
Secretly
That's what it's all about. It's like whether it's Dr. Demento or
I
like
kind of like that. Secretly
know-
listening to Dr. Demento.
Not bad. Or even
whatever is like you're not allowed to listen to. That's what these things are great for, or watching,
even
or
if you
whatever.
say secretly listening, even if you cut it short, that's pretty good. Secret listening. It also sounds like a bad podcast name.
Yeah.
Welcome to Secretly Listening. We're the NSA, and this is our podcast.
I spelled Dr. Demento like the Doctor Who, like
Oh, you did?
D-O-C, yeah.
People
But it's
with-
D-E-M-E-N-T-O, right? Demento? Yeah. Secretly listening to Dr. Demento. I like that.
All right. It's a thing I used to do.
It's better than secretly listening to Casey Kasem. The thing I used to do.
Oh. See, I was a geek. You were a nerd when it came.
I was trying to track the top 40. It's so obsessed with charts and what the top charts were, and it was the only way for me to get that, because I remember the Walden Books at St. Clair Square, 25 miles away, would sell Billboard magazine, but that was the closest I could get to actually getting my hands on the charts. So listening and writing them down was the next thing. There was no web.
Yep.
In fact, when the web came along, I was still excited to find that Billboard had a website and I could get the charts.
Oh, I am going down a serious YouTube rabbit hole now. Tamar, thank you for that, because now I am finding all these old transistor radio ads, and there are some winners in here.
Yep. I back in the day when I did research, there was a lot of that in my life.
Wow. And they're all like $24.95 and fit right in your pocket. A radio in your pocket.
A radio in my pocket?
Yep.
This is fantastic.
Yeah, that was the other thing with the Walkman is the non-earbud headphones.
Yeah.
Like the outside ones, like that was sort of like, whoa, because before that
Yeah.
they were all tiny, and then they got big, and then they got tiny again.
I get that I still have it. It works. I have a Sportsman Walkman, the ones that were yellow and like resistant to rain or whatever.
Oh, the one that with the little clip weather stripping.
Yeah, and it had like rubber around it. It all totally works still, and is sealed, rubber kept, and everything. But it came with these headphones that were over the head, but they were like earbuds on the end.
Yeah, I remember. I had them for my car Discman.
I loved those. Those were my favorite headphones ever.
They didn't sound all that great to my
I'm
ears.
sure they were terrible, but at the time I thought they were the bomb. Boy, there are a lot of women in robes sitting around listening to transistor radios.
Yes.
Also another good title.
Women in robes.
Right. Now it's like moms on their iPhones at home, like not watching the kids. And then
Right.
it was like listening to your soap operas on the radio, not watching
Right.
your kids. It's like the circle of tech. Him again.
Motorola really went for the throat on that.
Send some of those links to Roger. Maybe we could throw them up on the stream.
This whole search thing in Slack, Roger.
Got it.
It's a Google image search that I did.
Copy the link.
The circle of tech.
Nothing's dirty in here, right?
No. Well, no.
You have safe search on?
No.
Yeah, Roger?
No, I never have Surf Sage on.
But even if Surf Sage, but even if you do, it's just the search is transistor radio ad, and there are some sexist portrayals, but nothing's like
Okay.
But it's more like, hey, it's the 50s. Look at this gal.
That's not sexist. That's it. This woman's clearly not even wearing a bikini. Remember when there was a time where you could not show a woman's belly button, and so that's why women were always.
And transistor radios ruled the earth.
Actually, men were not allowed to show their belly buttons either. That's why the pants in the 40s and 50s were like so high.
Oh yeah, that's true.
It's too risky. Too risque.
Famously,
Crazy hot.
Jack Parr lost his job on the Tonight Show because he said water closet.
That's right.
Yep.
Well, it's not even it's such a dumb word to get fired over.
Yeah, also lots of pockets in those ads. But like in reality, they were slightly too big for real person pockets.
Oh yeah.
They were like, it was like 5 by 6, 5 by 4. So they were like not actually really for your pocket, at least when they first came out.
Yeah, it had to be some kind of like painter's pocket with like extra wide for brushes or
Right.
something. So this thing would fit and it would
My
still.
overalls.
Well, it had to be basically drawn because no one actually sewed anything like that.
Yeah.
Right.
The irony is though.
Oh, you know what's weird is these radios totally remind me of the Tivoli radio. Let me see if I know.
What, Tivoli?
Tivoli,
Yeah.
that whole kind of design. No, I don't. I'm not going to buy your thing. But it totally has this very similar kind of look and feel to it.
Well, people said that when the first iPod came out because they chose like the click wheel. So like the vertical with like a circle that didn't have to be a circle at all. There were like a ton of people when it first came out that were like, oh, they're like recalling the transistor radio look with like the circular speaker.
1960s.
That wouldn't surprise me because they were also Apple was really into what's that called where you try to make UI look like a real thing, like leather or buttons or
Skeuomorphic.
skeuomorphic. Yeah, it's that. I think that may have been a little bit of that. It was like modern meets skeuomorphic, and boom,
Right.
there's your iPod.
Right.
That seems like something Java.
I remember when something was called Pocket, I was like, it does not fit in a pocket. Like that used to be a thing where I'd see Pocket and I'd be like, I would immediately not believe it.
Yeah, it's like saying an iPhone 6 Plus can fit behind your ear. Well, it actually I have one. Let's see.
Yeah.
Nope,
Not quite.
not quite, but I could make an ad that would show it.
Oh, look at those calculators.
I'm trying to find the old 1960s, like there was a mechanical calculator that used to advertise as being like Pocket. It's like this. Here it is. Remember that? That was one of the things that used to be sold all the time in the back of National Geographic, and you would put the numbers in and you would turn it, and it would output the number. But it was advertised as being so small you could put it in your pocket.
That's amazing. I feel like Tom Hanks should find the location of the tomb of Jesus' wife with that or whatever. That looks
Totally. It's a codex.
yeah.
I think my grandpa had one of those. He was an accountant, and that looks really familiar.
That's what you set the numbers right here, and then I think on the reverse side or whatever at the top is your output. That's before you had transistors.
Wow. All right, so our show is published. It's also public. Thank you all for watching or listening. And as we should have mentioned earlier, go check out the Year in Tech History at TomMerrittBooks.com, illustrated by Scott Johnson.
Yeah, it's a good time.
Where you'll find a lot of these things. We'll talk to you later.
We're humble about this sort of stuff. It's fine.